It's degenerate and sick.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
we'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Good afternoon, good midday over here on the East Coast. Welcome to a special matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast at a special 12 p.m. Eastern time slot. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Forgive the early time slot today. Forgive us for having to mix the schedule up a little bit this week. Russell is flying back to New York, where all the action is. All eyes on New York City. All eyes on Columbia University. Russell lives walking distance to the campus, and you will be back tonight, around the middle of the night, right? Where you're flying out 3 o'clock, so by the time you get back, it's midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah, I am getting in at 11:20 at night.
Wow. Yeah. So you got 6-hour flight plus the 3-hour
The
jet
flight,
lag.
we must be catching a jet stream because the flight's only 5.5 hours.
Oh, there you go.
So that's nice. But this JetBlue fare did not allow me to carry on a bag. So I'm going to have to go to the fucking baggage carousel, which I hate.
Oh, you got JetBlue?
Yep.
I like JetBlue. We used to fly JetBlue.
Well,
we
I'm
used
doing
to do
JetBlue
those,
because they only have Airbuses.
Oh, there you go.
So you don't have to play the game of figuring out, and they can't switch it out because that can happen too.
Right.
They can swap out the plane even if you booked an Airbus. JetBlue only has Airbuses.
Yeah. That's the kind of plane they use. JetBlue's
Another
a good
fucking
airline.
plane taking off from JFK just lost the fucking ramp in the Atlantic. The fucking the slide fell off.
Yeah. We used to take those. We took a few of them. Those JetBlue like getaway packages, like the all-inclusive thing where the flights and the hotels are included. It's cheap, dirt cheap. We went to like Disney World for 5 days once. It was 4 nights in a hotel plus 2 round trip tickets to Orlando. It was like $600, like insanely cheap.
Well, because now because of all this. Okay, so I had like the Chase travel card, which is considered the best for like miles and bonuses and all that shit. I use that card almost exclusively so that I can travel. But now with this Boeing thing, it almost isn't worth it anymore because domestically, I'm only going to fly JetBlue from now on.
Right.
And internationally, I don't want to fly a Boeing. So like, it's probably not worth it anymore. I just signed up for like a frequent flyer number on JetBlue, given that, and I might just get like the JetBlue card instead.
There you go.
On the rare occasion I fly internationally, I mean, fuck it. If I got to make sure to be on an Airbus, like those kinds of deals, that's like too many layers. You're not really going to be able to do that. If you're trying to get like the best fare and the discount that coordinates with the card you have, plus you want it to be an Airbus, it's very unlikely you'll be able to rig it like that.
Wow, look at all these people filed in here all at once. 768 on YouTube and Twitter. All of a sudden there, you guys snuck up on us here. 487 strong over in the Rumble chat.
That's the NSA bots.
Yeah. Well, hit that like button, whoever you are, because we need to juice the algorithm today since we're at a special time, since Russell is flying out this afternoon. And because Russell's flying out this afternoon, we do have a hard out, as they say, in the business. So why don't we jump right in? Here's a story. You know, we've been on the crime and punishment beat, so to speak, this past, couple months of the show. Russell's trip down to Louisiana did a couple of stories out of there. He's got a third one that we will get to probably this week at some point. But here's a story from Florida. She only served 10 months behind bars. Florida still slapped her with a $127,000 bill. That's right. Under Florida's pay-to-stay law, inmates are charged $50 for every day of their sentence, including time they never spent incarcerated. So even if you get out early, you have to pay the state $50 a day. Yeah.
This is a classic example of what happens when people are afraid of their government and the government is not afraid of their people.
Exactly. Imagine you've just been released from prison in Florida. You have every intention of turning your life around. You plan to stay out of trouble, get a job, and follow the rules of your parole. Then you find out you owe a six-figure bill. In Florida and most other states, inmates are charged for the cost of their time in prison. The practice, called a pay-to-stay, leaves many former offenders with staggering debt. In Florida, prisoners are charged $50 every day of their original sentence, meaning they keep getting charged even if they are released early. When former inmates inevitably fail to pay this massive bill because they have a hard time getting jobs because they have a record, it can prevent them from ever moving on from their period spent behind bars. Where I'm at today, I'm truly being stopped by one single barrier, and it is a $sign, Shelby Hoffman told WFTS Tampa Bay, a local news station. Hoffman was hit with a $127,000 bill for a 7-year prison sentence, even though she only served 10 months. Since her release from prison, Hoffman has gotten clean and rebuilt her life. She's soon to graduate with a bachelor's degree. However, she can't start her dream career as a case manager because of her outstanding pay-to-stay bill. So we're going to see this report. This write-up was in Reason Magazine. Good principled libertarians here. Nice that they printed this. A lot of their readers found out what an African-American was for the first time when they read this article. So that's nice of them. It's educational on two fronts, right?
Robbie was like, what the fuck? I've been working with one all this time. I had no idea.
Exactly. So we're going to go to this news piece here, which puts a little bit of meat on the bones here.
An exemption from disqualification.
Sorry.
The state of Florida had what is called an exemption from disqualification, and they told me that you are not eligible because you owe over $127,000 for an incarceration fee from the state of Florida.
What was your reaction?
I cried. I was hysterically crying. I literally felt like my entire past just punched me in the face. When I was 13, my parents split up, so it caused, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of misdirection in the household. So I found a boyfriend that unfortunately got me hooked on opiates, snorting them, smoking them, and then eventually, I started shooting them.
And this was all while you were a teenager?
Yes.
After turning 18, Hoffman was charged with a third-degree felony.
I had pawned something that, was stolen.
Then a burglary charge.
Both of those charges are drug-influenced. Ever since, 10 years ago, I've never caught another charge. I told him, I said, listen, Your Honor, you keep putting me on the streets, I'm going to die. I need help.
Hoffman was sentenced to the Phoenix house for a year, but did not complete the program.
The director kicked me out.
Because of that, the judge sentenced Hoffman to 7 years in prison. She served 10 months, the judge allowing her to participate in a youth offender boot camp.
I had paid everything off. I petitioned the courts to get off of probation. He clapped for me and said, you above anybody deserve this. Congratulations, Ms. Hoffman. I've taken pictures with him, given him a hug, and he wrote me a handwritten Christmas card telling me he knew I could do it. I finally felt like, the book was closed. Your redemption is complete.
Within 3 years, when applying for that exemption to work in case management, her dream job, Hoffman found out that she, like thousands of others, still owes the state $50 a day for the 7 years of her original sentence, $127,750.
You charged me for a cell that I didn't occupy? I felt so tricked and so fooled. There is no ladder with them. that will ever truly allow you to be a second chance anything. There isn't. And they make sure of it.
Hoffman's grand.
Yeah.
Well,
to the free.
And this is, we did the story here and on Jimmy's, but we show Colin Jost's just disgustingly craven monologue at the end of his set at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This freedom is so rare in the world, and all the journalists, are they covering this? Are they covering this? You should hear about this every day. Most states charge you for your incarceration. Why is this not a national scandal? This is something else we should do a story about. Fucking property seizures. That there is so much abuse of, if you get accused of a drug crime, they'll just take all your shit, whether you're guilty or not. A lot of times you've had people who later on were not convicted and they never got their stuff back. They never got their money back. This is a very good example of what happens when you have a population that no one really cares about. This really shows you the true state of the true face of state power. This is what states will do if nobody pushes them not to, and nobody cares about prisoners, right? Nobody cares about drug addicts. That's why they're able to essentially keep slavery going by another name.
Yes, because they're able to blame the victim. Right.
Yes, that's it.
This woman gets involved
in a lot of these prisons.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but in a lot of these prisons, they've privatized the phone network. So that phone call you would make to your relative, now you're paying $10, $20 to call home because they know they can get away with it.
Exactly.
And nobody cares about that. Fuck you then. You
shouldn't have
committed
done
the crime. You shouldn't have done the crime.
Shouldn't have done the crime. Shouldn't have done this. Shouldn't have done that. This goes back to when I was a teenager. I realized that, like, the right-wing vision of freedom is freedom to live exactly how they tell you to, right?
Yes.
But if you step out of line ever so slightly, that can set you on a cycle of doom, or on a path to doom that you can't ever reverse. And they'll go back, you shouldn't have done the thing that set you on the path. Well, you're not really free unless you're free to err, right? You have to be free to make mistakes, or else you're not really free. This poor woman gets involved with the wrong guy as a teenager. She gets hooked on drugs. She gets booked at age 18, right? I mean, and now what? Now she's $127,000 in the hole for time she didn't even serve. So you're charging her rent, right? You're charging her rent for time that she didn't even spend in the unit. Maybe that's part of why sentencing is so out of control, right? What if the judge handed down a 20-year sentence and she got out in 10 months? Then she'd owe what? $350,000, $400,000, whatever the math comes out to be, right? They can just, once they get you in the system, once they get a hold of you, and once they deem you unworthy, they could do whatever they want to you. They could do whatever they want to. And the idiots out here are who I blame for this, who say exactly what you say. Well, you shouldn't have done it. Okay, so you live your life exactly the way you're supposed to. Anybody out there has done that? I don't hear anything. No, right? Unless you're free to fuck up, you're not actually free. And this is extortion. I mean, this is just horrible. And like you said, why isn't this everywhere? Like, why don't people know? Like, there's so much that people don't know. There's so much abuse by the state that people don't even know about. I didn't know you got charged. I didn't know you had to pay rent for prison. I thought you're there doing time. That is your debt to society. You owe society the time. Right? And I think we make people spend way too much time in jail. I've said that over and over again, whether it's one case or the next. But now that starts to make a little more sense. They're getting paid for it. This is where the war on drugs, you see the tentacles of it in places that you never even thought to look, right? Like you never even would think of this. Who would even think? It never even occurred to me that people had to pay rent for being in prison. Apparently, this is not unique to Florida. Apparently, this is more widespread than that.
I did not know it was most states. This is something I'd like to look into more now that this came up. That might be worth doing a follow-up piece on. But yeah, we got into that with the Louisiana thing because it's profitable. They're hiring out these prisoners to corporations to make their food, to make clothes, to do work. They're fucking slaves. That's why they have so much incarceration. This is profitable for them. They make money off of it. And this is what amazes me about all these people from northern states who, you know, consider themselves libs or whatever, who have moved to Florida. Okay, so yeah, they didn't lock down during COVID, but look at what the conservative vision of society is. You got Ron DeSantis running around, Mr. Free Speech. Oh, Mr. Anti-Woke, you can't shut down speech. He's saying he's going to expel everybody from Florida universities if they protest for Palestine. Yep. One of the most draconian abortion laws in the country is about to go into effect in Florida. These people are not your friends. They're not your friends. Just because they will speak out about puberty blockers for 12-year-olds, which good, doesn't mean that these are your allies.
Yeah, no, that is just an amazing story. Just an amazing story. I thought we should share that. And that video went fairly viral. They got like 4 million views, so it's out there now. So that's good.
Yeah, but are they going to do anything about it? There's the thing. I mean, who's going to stand up for these people? Who's going to speak out for these people? Of all of the, you want to talk about marginalized groups? You know, we were talking about this offline. Where are all these DEI people speaking out for the Palestinians? Where's Ibram X. Kendi? Why isn't he over at Columbia showing his solidarity with the students? Where's Robin fucking DiAngelo? Where the fuck are these people now? In the end, the most marginalized people in society that nobody will say anything for are these prisoners. It's the same thing. Where are all those DEI people? Why aren't they speaking out about this? Why aren't they speaking out for these prisoners? Who's more marginalized than these prisoners? Well, you're not going to get $20,000 a pop to speak about these prisoners. No. They can't scrape together the money to give you the kinds of fees that you're accustomed to. So they don't have shit to say about this. You have a platform talking about marginalized people and you don't say anything about this?
Right. It's hard to get rich.
Marginalized?
It's hard to get rich off of people coming out of jail because they don't have the money to give you. The state can suck money out of them little by little, which they're going to do now. This woman will probably be in debt for her whole life. And it's just horrible.
These people are fucking scum of the earth, man. I mean, the legislatures that passed this, the governor that signed it, I don't know when these laws went into effect, but you know that shit's not right. Even if you're a punitive, tough on crime, you shouldn't have done the crime, you know charging them for a sentence they didn't serve is wrong.
Yeah.
And you push that through anyway? Wow, man.
Charging them any rent is wrong. They're doing time.
Charging them any rent, but I'm saying you could see your way clear to saying they believe that morally. Mm-hmm. But even the most tough on crime person, you can't believe they even think that's appropriate. That is purely we can do it, so we're going to do it.
Right.
That's it. We can get away with it. No one's going to stop us. There's no possible way that you could think there's an underlying morality to doing that to people. The people who did this, they should be in fucking prison.
Indeed. 7:57 over on Rumble. Thank you all for being here. 1384 on YouTube and Twitter. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €5. Not sure if anyone else has a problem sending super chats from their phones. I'm getting an error message, hence I'm on my work laptop sending this. Well, that's dedication, Patrick. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. I don't know. I think the option was available on my phone. I think I see the little $sign there. Thank you, Patrick, though. Michael Castillo, look at this. $100. I fucking love your show, gentlemen. I need more cowbell. Your wish is our command.
Well, you are going to get it, sir.
There you go. Thank you, Michael. That is very generous of you. Appreciate that very much. That is too kind.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Yeah. Kenman. In fairness to Christy Noam, the dog looked like Scott Galloway. Yeah. Yo, that dog was actually really cute. I didn't include a picture of the dog in the slide because that just would have been too sad if we saw the dog. Well, it was actually a very cute dog.
Well, and you get some stupid motherfuckers who are like, yeah, you never been on this farm. Man, suck my dick. Listen, you talk to these fucking people who actually do know about these dogs, and what they're going to tell you is, yeah, they're work dogs. That's what they're made for. You have to spend years training these dogs.
And
so
apparently
if you're a real farm person, you would be able to train the dog. You wouldn't have to shoot it. And at the very least, if you are not competent enough to train it, give it to someone who is. What do you need to kill the dog for? Just give it to somebody.
Give it away. Exactly. Yeah. No, and apparently this particular breed is like very energetic, like especially energetic, and can be difficult to train. Yeah, exactly. Jules Elizard, 88, Danish delegation here. Thank you very much. Did you see Galloway has 500 candidates now in the UK? No, that's amazing. Sarah W. looks strong in Germany. Anti-elite fight is here in the West. Oh, that's cool. We'll have to look into that. Maybe we'll cover that on Thursday on our Euro Dissident show. Back from the road, so you earn 50 cents an hour and pay $50 a day in America. Yes, thank you, Back from the road. Appreciate that.
Fucking terrible, man.
Sam Bruce, sweet Rumble reminder with only 6 seconds left of elevator music. Yeah, sometimes the Rumble notifications can be a little slow, but they're a lot better than they used to be. It used to take like 20 minutes to a half an hour for Rumble to send them out, so they're getting better. They're working on it, folks. We got to build that platform up. So hit that follow button wherever you are. Hit that subscribe button wherever you are, and we'll get to all Rumble rants and super chats in due time. But let's move on to some comedy. Let's do some comedy. That first segment was a little bit of a downer. This one is not. This is going to make you guys laugh. This is James Carville talking to himself.
Before we move on.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
This is James Carville apparently talking to himself. Maybe he's on a Zoom call. Maybe he's on an interview for a podcast or TV show. This clip just kind of surfaced on Twitter.
I was under the impression he dropped it on social media somewhere, but we can only speculate.
Yeah, who knows? This got around, but I don't know the source. There's no logo or chyron on the screen. But here's James Carville giving young people a hard time for not falling in line behind Joe Biden. The polls tightened for a little while there. Last big poll that came out, I think it was New York Times Siena poll, had Trump +6 and up in all the swing states. So, some more bad news for the Biden campaign. And here's James Carville really turning on the charm to young people. This is probably his most unhinged video yet, and that's saying something because he has set a high bar for himself. But here he is.
Kidding me? Is this the United States of America? Is this the nation that was founded on the principle that no person is above the law? And then you tell these young people, if you don't get involved right now in this election, they're going to be involved in your life for the rest of your freaking life. And if Trump and Roberts and Alito and Gorsuch and Thomas and Leonard Leo and the Heritage Foundation, if they get a hold, there will be no government left. There will be no rights left. You'll live under theocracy. You'll end up with Christian nationalism. But that's all right, you little fucking 26-year-old. You know.
This gets even better. We're only halfway through. This gets even more fun. I'll tell this to James Carville, though, because maybe this will help you kind of figure out where the country's at, where a lot of younger people are at, and how much people really don't give a shit what people like you think.
I mean, if they ever reboot Popeye, he's a shoo-in.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's got to work out a little bit. He's probably a little skinny for Popeye. Popeye,
they'll CGI the forearms.
CGI the muscles in. But I'll tell James Carville this. I would happily surrender all my rights if I could take yours with me. Like, that's how much I dislike you. Like, if they need someone to go to the labor camps with, James Carville and spend the rest of their life doing forced labor for no wages, I'll volunteer to go with you just because I know it'll hurt you. That's how much I can't stand you. So, like, if all of us have to lose our rights, that's a bargain I'm willing to make as long as you lose yours, right? I will happily go down on the ship with you if I can get the satisfaction of taking you down.
And I think
so there now it all makes sense, right? I don't care.
Well, you've just described the thinking of a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, what do I care? Yeah, what are you threatening me with?
I don't care if the nation goes up in flames as long as I can watch Mika lose her shit on Morning Joe.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not real. Like, when the country falls past a certain point, people feel like they have nothing to lose.
Right.
And watching you guys cope and seethe is worth it. Worth whatever negative consequence there is. Because as we've learned these past 3.5 years, the consequences aren't really any less negative with you guys in charge. The only difference is you guys are smug, condescending, holier than thou assholes when Joe Biden is in there thinking, what? Inflation has slowed down. So why don't you just, get over it or whatever? We saw Carville, Paul Krugman, right? Like, when Democrats are in power, you lecture everybody about how good they have it, even though it's no better than when Donald Trump is in power. When Trump is in power, you guys melt down, and it's fun to watch like this.
Right.
Like, this is a lot of fun. And it's about to get even more fun.
Right. And in the end, you can't bow down and compromise with the other side fast enough. You love that shit, right? Come on, man. You tried to cut a deal on Social Security, right? I mean, you wanted to work with the Republicans on that. They torched it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's we got the second half of this. This gets even better.
But that's all right, you little fucking 26-year-old. You don't feel like the election's important to me. They're not addressing the issues that I care about. Well, the New York Times story about the Harvard Youth Poll, which is a pretty good, well-regarded thing, a guy named John Della Volpe. And very recently, they gave youngsters the 15 most important issues. Clocking in at number 14 was student debt. You wouldn't know that if you read the fucking press. Number 15 was the issue of Palestine. High on the list was abortion, was interest rates, was housing affordability, were all of these other things. You are being insufficiently served by the commentariat, and to some extent, you're being insufficiently served through Democratic messages.
Okay, so while we're on this question, I did a little bit of digging into this Harvard Youth Poll to see what that's all about, right? Because he says Palestine's last on the list, along with student debt. Now, assuming this is what he's talking about, and like I said, I just researched this morning, but this is the latest Harvard Youth Poll. They do this weird aggregate of how the issues rank in terms of importance. And so we identified 16 prominent areas of concern and asked survey respondents in a series of randomized matchups which of the two paired issues was more important to them, which is a very strange methodology.
That's a weird way to do it. Yeah.
Very weird way to do it. Again, we found that economic concerns were viewed as more prominent. Inflation, healthcare, housing, and jobs won most matchups regardless of what they were paired against. So in other words, they'll ask, okay, what's more important, jobs or crime? So in that case, 53% say jobs, 47% say crime. Now, Israel-Palestine is down here, 34%, which is relatively low. But that's not to say only 34% feel it's important. It's saying a third of people will choose Israel-Palestine over a random other issue, which again,
it's a very weird way to conduct a poll.
I don't even know why you would conduct it that way. And don't forget, these are not just
to get this result. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. And these are not just young Democrats. There are independents. There are Republicans who care a lot less about this, who are asked about this issue as well. And it doesn't necessarily tell you how they feel one way or another. So Israel-Palestine has a 37% rating among Democrats, 32% amongst Republicans. The Republicans are more likely to feel that they're most likely, those are like the diehard Zionists who are like, this is the top.
Exactly.
So this poll really doesn't say, unless there's some other part of it that I'm missing, but I looked through it, and this is, from what I could tell, what he was referencing. this doesn't say what he says it said, which is that Israel, Palestine, and student debt don't matter to people, right? That's a very different thing to say, because obviously inflation is likely to trump everything. What have we said this whole time? Inflation, immigration, those are going to be the top two issues no matter what amongst the general population. But their problem now is not with the general population. Their problem now is with their base of Democratic voters who are appalled by Biden's handling of this Israel-Palestine issue. So I just wanted to show that. But here's the cherry on top.
Well, all of these other things, you are being insufficiently served by the commentariat, and to some extent, you're being insufficiently served through Democratic messages. So my advice to tell these young people to get off your motherfucking ass and go vote, because you should vote like your entire future and the entire future of this United States depends on it, because quite frankly, it does, by the combating messages. So my advice to tell these young people to get off your motherfucking ass and go vote, because you should vote like your entire future and the entire future of this United States depends on it.
When I was growing up, if you didn't vote, we had a special kind of cayenne pepper. We give you an enema in the back. My grandma would take you out back in the shed. She'd give you the cayenne pepper enema. She'd say, "I'll teach you not to vote next time, motherfucker."
She shoved a cayenne pepper up my motherfucking ass, and that got me out to the polls.
That got me out to the polls. That's what made me a professional in politics. I said, if somebody gonna give you a cayenne pepper enema, I guess this shit's important, ain't it?
Nothing puts a pep in your step like a pepper up your asshole. That's a Carville family tradition. Wow. What a guy. You know, when you get off your motherfucking ass to protest genocide, you have to sit back down on your motherfucking ass, right? Then they don't want you off your ass.
When you drag that AIPAC money through a trailer park, you find all kinds of things.
Oh, man. That's a total meltdown. I mean, you saw in the middle of that, we don't care about the issues. Oh, you don't care about what issues are important to us. Here he is.
It's important to me. They're not addressing the issues that I care about. Well, the New York Times, Harvard.
What a guy. What a guy. See, it's so fun. Like, watching these people panic is just so much fun. Like, this is the best payoff in politics there is. Like, if you vote for Donald Trump, and I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump because he's an Israel ball licker as well, and I can't go there, right? Just in principle. But the payoff is so much more concrete, and it's guaranteed. The payoff of voting for Trump is you get to watch these people put on shows like that, right?
You're at least going to get to see the aristocrats have a meltdown,
right? And you know it. That's a guarantee when you vote for Trump. When you vote for Democrat, nothing's a guarantee. They say we're going to do public option, no mention of it, none ever. Oh, we're going to raise the minimum wage. Oh, the parliamentarian said no. Oh, we're anti-racist, except when Israel wants to genocide a bunch of brown people. Right. You never know what you're getting.
In the end, you are just a horse to them that they want to saddle up to elevate themselves and ride you to power. That's what voters are for them. They are offended when the other side is in power because it offends their aesthetics. Look at what he's saying. Oh, they are not for the issues I care about because, they're fucking rich, man. It doesn't matter what they do with abortion or anything else. It doesn't matter for them. They'll just they can have whatever they want, no matter what. Politics is completely an abstraction and an aesthetic exercise for someone like James Carville and for their entire class. They tell you have to do this so that we'll protect you from the Republicans. Well, you had decades to codify Roe v. Wade, but you didn't do it because it was a useful fucking issue for you. So even on the levels that you say you need us to protect you from them, no, we don't. Exactly. You had your chance. You didn't do that. So why would people vote for you? And that's the elephant in the room they don't want to address.
Yeah. And like Russell said, nothing is actually at stake for these people, and nothing is at stake for the people who take them seriously either. It's all an abstraction. It's all about how they feel about the world. And their just stunning ability to turn their conscience, quote unquote, off when it comes to certain issues. Like, how could you even make an argument like this, given what's going on right now? Not just in Israel, Gaza, but, we were going to do this story today. We're going to do it tomorrow since the occupation at Colombia came up. It bounced it out. But Ukraine is having recruitment problems. They're changing their passport laws so that Ukrainians who are living abroad have to come home and go into this meat grinder. Like, a huge part of the Biden legacy is going to be the decimation of Ukraine and of the people of Ukraine. So for all their flag waving, they are the enemies of Ukraine, as I see it. As I see it, I'm a much stronger advocate for the ordinary people of Ukraine than Joe Biden is. But, they are completely upside down on that. Gaza just gets
I love the
memory
Ukrainian
hold or
people
whatever,
so much. I got a Ukrainian living in my house.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
He's occupying my Donbass, as I like to say.
He's in the east wing of the house. Yeah,
exactly. He is actually. He's in the north. He's in the north of the house. Yeah. He's occupying the north.
Yeah. No, but I mean, they just go on these self-righteous rants like that, and the things that matter to them are things that matter to nobody else. Howard Stern, I don't understand how the end of the debate is find me 11,000 votes. Like, nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody gives a shit about January 6th. These are top-of-mind issues for such a tiny sliver of the population, to the point where it's not even, they're not even a statistically measurable part of the overall population. They are a statistically...
Yeah, why don't they do that poll?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Where's January 6th on that poll? How many young people
care about January 6th?
Where's the litigation of the 2020 vote? On that poll. Right, exactly. Yeah, nowhere. And so you can't even say this is a tiny sliver of the population. I mean, as a percentage of the population overall, they are statistically zero. They're a tiny sliver of, I won't say a tiny sliver, but there are a small percentage of people who watch MSNBC, right? Like, that's where it's measurable. That's where the concern for that is actually measurable, So yeah, it's just, that's how you get that. But that is quite the sight to see.
But I will say that even this is wearing thin for all but the most diehard members of the liberal class. Because if you do watch social media, the only people I see doing the fucking orange man bad bullshit, they're mostly really lonely old people who have nothing to look forward to other than someone liking the meme that they share. There's very few people getting into that.
Oh, yeah.
Genocide
well, that's why I'm saying
Joe.
It's not even a big part of the MSNBC audience anymore. This is just like the diehard of the diehard. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Let's go to a few more super chats, and then we will move right along. Have you guys seen the Good Times cartoon? Damn. I have not.
I've heard. RBN seemed not to like it. I saw their like. I
didn't see any. I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, I think they did an episode because I saw like their thumbnail about it. I think
what is
they
it?
talked about it.
I don't even know what this is. What is good?
You know what Good Times is, right?
No.
Well, Amish motherfucker, man.
No, I don't even know.
Keeping your head above water.
Oh, okay. And so what happened?
When you can. Come on, everyone. Temporary layoffs, good times. All right. So
what card? So what? There's a new.
Okay. So Good Times was a '70s sitcom. It was one of the Norman Lear empire of social commentary sitcoms about a family living in the projects in Chicago. And a lot of people. I mean, it's interesting as a cultural artifact. Like, there's been a lot of debate about that show's legacy, because on the one hand, a lot of people feel like it came in strong because you had a father in the house and it showed a strong family. But then pretty early on, they got rid of the father and kind of fell back on the trope of the single mother. Like, yeah, he wasn't absent, he died, but still. And then JJ was like the breakout character on that show. And in the end, as the show went on, he became more and more of a throwback to a step and fetch minstrel show kind of character. His trademark phrase was dynamite. It was very minstrel show. So now they are doing a cartoon reboot, which I don't know. At the very least, RBN seemed not to like it if I read their thumbnail right.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I had no idea about any of that. China shill, pure evil reptilian for-profit prison system. Absolutely.
Fuck
China
yeah,
shill.
man. Fuck yeah.
Absolutely.
So China shill, now do you see why I'm very skeptical of the idea of unchecked state power? Now do you see what I'm talking about?
Oh, George, my Building 7 buddy just received solid intel that Jackson Hinkle is about to tease an upcoming Alex Jones segment, which he definitely proves Elvis's heritage. Knew you'd be interested. Thank you, oh, George. Appreciate that. Florida's the Ukraine of the United States, says Nocturnal Human. Thank you. Let's see here. Abiding was in Philly 2016, rattling the fence at Wells Fargo Center. Good for you. Just got itinerary for Chicago, August. Hope to see some of you there. Oh, we'll get to meet Abiding. There you go. Beautiful. That'll be great. That'll be awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yep, Russell's trip is there. Booked.
I'll be there. I think Nick's planning on being there. Obviously, Kit's going to be there, and JD might be there.
Awesome.
I am doing a live show with him on the Friday before the convention starts.
Right. So he'll be there before, and then it's just a matter of if the calendar is free after that, right? Because the convention is, 4 days, something like that?
Yeah, starting on Monday, Monday to Thursday.
Dan, thanks for the $4.99. The ruling elite doesn't like Trump because he tarnishes the white brand by constantly saying the quiet part out loud. That's it, nothing else, my POV. Yep. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate
you think we don't have killers here? We have a lot of killers here.
Exactly. Phoenix House is part of the troubled teen industry worth looking into. I was sent to a TTI program in Utah. Thank you, Veronica.
What'd you do?
Yeah. Eugene Robinson, a particularly poor take on campus protests in WAPO today. Yeah, it's not a big surprise. No compassion
Eugene
was
Robinson
shown to the students. He's a hack.
Eugene Robinson? Look, man, all these people are fucking disgusting. And I'm sorry, man. You know we don't traffic a lot in identity politics. But if you're from that kind of marginalized community and you're willing to just parrot these establishment talking points, you're a special kind of scumbag, man. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Keaton says, Pretery, you're looking neurodiverse today. I am neurodiverse. I'm fucking crazy. You didn't know that? You don't know that by now? Of course I'm neurodiverse. Russell, eyes cold and dead as ever. A happy adopt a shelter pet day. Christine Holmes' family doesn't celebrate. Thank you, Pretery. Yeah. You guys didn't know I'm nuts? I'm surprised. For a person who's supposedly so opposed to the Republicans, James Carville does not mind being married to one since 93. Yes, Mary Madeline and James Carville married quite a long time. Yep, indeed. Okay, let's go on. We're going to do some campus protest material pretty much from here on out. Lots going on this front. So we're going to kind of try to move in chronological order here as best we can, starting with NYU professor Scott Galloway's take on CNN that protest is the new sex. Yeah, you heard that right. I don't expect it to make sense right away, but see if he can do a better job explaining it. After all, he is a professor. He gets paid to explain things, so maybe he could do a better job of this than me.
I think there's something bigger going on, Michael. Finally, I think there's something bigger going on, Michael. I think that you have young people who are enraged by the lack of opportunity that they're presented with. I think that protesting is kind of the new, if you will, sex. Young people aren't having as much sex. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but for the species to survive, you have to have young people connecting.
I would say Smirkanish has the look in his eye that, wow, that took a turn. Then again, he always has that look in his eye. That's his default.
This is nothing. This is nothing new. Remember Madeleine Albright? The Bernie women are just there to meet boys.
They're there to meet boys.
They always like to attribute their principles to libido.
Yes, exactly. Let's take back a little bit.
Young people aren't having as much sex. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but for the species to survive, you have to have young people connecting in terms of romantic opportunities, and also for the species to survive, you get a dopa hit from gathering together and fighting off a perceived enemy. And I think they're erring on the latter.
Yeah, they're having a great time out there. It's all about a dopamine hit, right? That's what it looks like to me. Those kids are out there to get a quick dopamine high. I'm sure all this constant intrusive thoughts of babies buried under rubble and mothers and fathers crying, looking for loved ones, and mass graves of people with their hands tied behind their back. I'm sure that's how they get their dopamine hit, right? This is all a trend. This is all a fad, right? They're out there to have a good time. They're having fun, getting their heads bashed in by the cops, getting doxxed by their employers, having to wear a fucking COVID mask around their face in spring weather now because they don't want people to see who they are. Yeah, no, it's a great time out there. Real party atmosphere. It's like Woodstock. What a fucking moron. And this guy teaches at NYU, so he knows. He's there. He's around, I guess.
Yeah, the tombs are a ball, man. The tombs are like, as soon as you get there, they give you the glow sticks. They got a big disco ball sitting there in the middle of the cell. It's a big rave. It's a big rave there in the prison.
Yeah, you think they're doing this for fun? Really? You think this is what college kids would rather do than have sex? Really?
They literally call Manhattan Central booking the tombs.
Yeah, right.
There's a reason for that. It is cold and lightless in a basement. That's where they take you when you get arrested in Manhattan.
Yep.
If you will. I think they're on the hunt for what I'd call a fake mortal enemy. And the reality is, if you type in to Google anti-Semitism and pick any century in the last 3,000 years, you're going to find multiple instances where the world decides the Jews are the mortal enemy. And then finally...
Wait a minute. Okay, so it's a coincidence. So they just happen to tap into this ancient prejudice, this ancient hatred of Jewish people at the same time that Israel started killing 100 children a day? Like, they're not getting laid. They need something to do, and so they'll go out and they'll bash Jews, right? This happens throughout history. Nothing curious about the timing of this, even though obviously I don't even have to say anymore to convey the just utter absurdity of that point, as if this is not a response to a specific event. It is not a manifestation of an ancient grudge against Jewish people that all of a sudden sprouted up when Israel started carpet bombing an imprisoned population that they occupy. I mean, this guy gets paid. This is a professor at NYU. This is what I mean. Not only are these institutions of quote unquote higher learning being exposed for their hypocrisy, but their stupidity. Look at the mediocre caliber of human being that gets paid to teach at NYU. A guy that would even think that point is in the realm of believability. He's a moron. He's a fucking idiot. These people are not particularly smart. They're not particularly talented. They don't have anything of importance to offer. That's why they get paid to harangue students and lecture students, because they can't actually make it in the world. It's an old cliche, but it's true. Those who can't do, teach. Right.
Well, this is Norm in the book he wrote before October 7th. I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. Talks a lot about that, about how to become an academic with tenure and good standing, you have to have convinced them that you're never going to say anything interesting enough to be controversial.
Right.
That's really the way to get in. Like, only the most mediocre minds are able to get through the gauntlet of gaining tenure at a university. And, certainly you see that. Now, Ryan Grimm actually dropped an article. I just took a look at it right before we went on. They just did a poll showing that, unsurprisingly, people who watch cable news are primarily believe that Israel is in the right and is not committing a genocide. Whereas people who get their news other ways overwhelmingly believe that Israel is committing a genocide and a war crime. So that's what this is, man. I mean, cable news is there to platform this kind of thing. But the reason they're scrambling so hard to paint this absolutely absurd picture that college campuses are erupting like Nazi Germany with this overwhelming swell among the wokest generation ever of anti-Semitic virulent hatred against a racial or cultural group. It's absurd on the face of it, but they have to, because what else can they do? Acknowledge that Israel is an apartheid state that represents everything that all these good virtue signaling people of cable news have been telling you that they're against for decades. They have to concede that these students have a point. The last thing they want is to debate them on the merits of Israel commit. They never say on these shows, well, let's ask, is Israel committing a genocide?
Right.
Is Israel committing a war crime? They never take them on the premise. All they can do is smear them and try to rule what they're doing out of bounds and characterize it as being about something that it clearly is not. They have absolutely no evidence for this. Whenever you find incidents of people saying kill the Jews, it turns out that it's provocateurs who are trying to discredit the protesters.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because like as the media turned, these campus protests really sort of like sprouted up. Like, what if these encampments started a few weeks ago? Would the media have embraced them? No. They'd have probably done a 180 in accordance with these protests because they can't cover these protests favorably for reasons that we'll see soon. But let's let him finish here.
This sounds paranoid, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. The frame through which they view the world is oftentimes or predominantly TikTok. And on TikTok, Michael, there are 52 pro-Hamas videos for every one pro-Israel video. So the frame through which they see the world is, in my opinion, being influenced to sow division and chaos within America and divide young from old.
What he means is 52 anti-genocide videos for every one, pro-Israel video. That's what he means there. And so, again, just what a mediocre person. He's making the rounds. All of a sudden, this guy he's everywhere. He's on Morning Joe. He's on
Turd
Bill Maher.
Blossom.
Yeah, he's on CNN. No one, who ever heard of this guy until 2 weeks ago? All of a sudden, he's making the rounds.
I've never heard of him until he started popping up on these shows.
Yeah. Must be because he teaches at NYU.
Well, they had to find somebody shameless enough to say this kind of thing. And he's their guy. He's their guy. They also have to find people who are not only shameless enough to say this kind of thing, but who are not afraid of what the consequences are going to be later for having been a prominent spokesperson for this point of view. A lot of people are trying to stay out of this because, particularly as we were talking with Ryan Long yesterday about, and he made that great video referencing it. I mean, people in entertainment and the culture industry, they are mostly just not saying a fucking word about this, which is disgusting in and of itself because they can't tell you enough what they think about Drag Time Story Hour. But this shit, they don't want to, they want no part of any of this. So I think they kind of have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find somebody who's going to make the rounds saying, yeah, no, they're just there to get laid.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, you can go to patreon.com/do dissidents and become a supporting member of this program if you like what we do. It helps us out tremendously. This is what allows us to do 4 shows a week, which we are doing now. So tomorrow we are on Rumble exclusively at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's Wednesday. And then this Thursday show, program note, will be at 8 p.m. We sent out a newsletter email yesterday to all our Substack members. So if you're not on the Substack, join, even if you have to join for free. That gets you a free subscription to our newsletter. But if you want to help support the show, the best way by far is to become a member. You can go to patreon.com/do dissidents, dodissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at dodissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, you can join our locals by hitting that join button underneath the video player, or you can use this link. Perks are the same across all 3 platforms. You get your name on the show credits here. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, which are every Sunday nights, and you get 2 bonus streams per month just for Patreon locals and Substack members. 2 full-length shows. Those shows are a lot of fun. We just had our second one of April 2 days ago. We do about an hour's worth of material, and then we take about an hour's worth of phone calls. So those are really fun, interactive streams. We get to not only watch the show, but call and say hello if you'd like to do that. So we really try our best to make it as worthwhile as possible for you because you guys are what keep the show going. Our supporters are the backbone of this project. We say it every time, because we mean it every time. And not only do you get bonus streams, but you get live stream access to our live show in New York City. Tickets for the live show are still on sale. That's right, they are still on sale. We have 1 seat left for the 7 p.m. show at the Producers Club in New York City on Sunday, June 9th. That's right, just one ticket left. Who wants it? Who wants it? Who wants it? You can go to dudissidents.com/night show to claim it now. And we have, 7 left, I think, for the day show, right? So we have a combined 8 seats left for both shows. So they are filling up. So if you want to come see us live and in person in New York with Tusker, Jose Vega, and musical guest Jesse Jett from the Indie News Network, go to dudissidents.com/day show for the 2 p.m., dudissidents.com/night show for the 7 p.m. Let's see if we can sell this out this week so that we don't have to keep talking about it on the show. We can plug other stuff, such as our Give, Send, Go, which is active. We are sending Russell to Chicago. But if you want to help send Russell to Dearborn in the fall to interview the Muslim and Arab leaders boycotting the Biden ticket, you can go to givesendgo.com/dudissidents. We got enough in the bank to fund Chicago. That's in the books. That's done. But we need to raise some money for Dearborn. So if you want to help us out, go to givesendgo.com/dudissidents. Thank you all very much for your support. Geez, says Ava. Thanks for the $5. Foghorn Carville might benefit from fillers. Yeah, that's a good name for him, Foghorn Carville. Old man yells
this
at
fucking
clouds.
scumbag douchebag.
Yeah. Oh, what a character. When Carville was young, I'd have had to guess how many beans there were in the jar to vote. Can Christie take him to the gravel pit? Oh, that's not nice. We're not violent here. But thank you. Siddhartha Vicious, the Crypt Keeper, has aged terribly. Yeah, he always kind of looked like that. I mean,
he did,
you could say he aged terribly or he aged well. He looked like, he's a guy he was like born looking 62 years old. Some people just like look that age their whole life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Salman Rushdie's like that. Like Salman Rushdie has looked like 58 years old for 50 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
He aged into it.
I mean,
when he was young, he looked middle age. When he was middle age, he looked his age, and now he looks young for his age. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
some people just like that.
Missing an eye now.
Well, now, yes, sadly, of course. RBGH fam, the Uniparty is just a game between the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. Watch the game. We'll be behind you. Thank you, RBGH fam. Appreciate that. Good Times, says Cool Blue, was spun off from Maude, a spinoff as well from All in the Family. Mike Evans, Lionel and the Jeffersons, and Eric Monti, 75's Cooley High, created the series. Thank you, Cool Blue.
I didn't know Lionel created the series. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Thanks for the Yankees rant, says Black Spock. They're off to a great start this season. Oh, yeah, that was a few shows ago, right? I talked about the Yankees, or maybe on the Jimmy Dore show I mentioned them. Yeah, they got off to a great start. Then they've been average since, but they got a nice little cushion there. So they're doing definitely better than I thought. If they can keep, this pace until Garrett Cole gets back, maybe they got a shot. Maybe they got a shot to go somewhere. Go to the playoffs at least. All right. What do we got here? How many what else we got going on here? Carville should be kept in the dog kennel, so he's trying to shield. Thank you. That Grandpappy Poop Deck. That's a good nickname for Carville. See, you guys are having fun piling on James Carville here. Stone Socialist says if Biden and the Dems were so great, they wouldn't have to work so hard to convince us. We would already know. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
True that.
And Stoop Sign says, oops, sorry. There we go. Stoop Sign says 120K in crime fines. Good times. Yep. Ain't that America, right? Okay. We are going to move on. All right, folks. This is the big segment of the day. This is the big news of the day. It broke yesterday afternoon that Columbia begins to suspend student protesters. University officials gave the pro-Palestinian demonstrations a 2 p.m. deadline and threatened to suspend them if they did not leave. They ended up making good on that threat. They did suspend the student protesters, but news moves so fast nowadays that the suspension is really the prologue of the story, because overnight, Columbia protesters occupy Hamilton Hall as university standoff escalates. Demonstrators take over Hamilton Hall in escalation of anti-war protests. Al Jazeera reports Students have taken over a building at Columbia University as the standoff between protesters against Israel's war on Gaza and the varsity authorities escalates. Protesters moved to occupy Hamilton Hall at the university in New York early on Tuesday after the management said it had begun suspending students who had refused to meet a deadline to disperse on Monday. The move threatens to escalate the standoff, which has seen protests over the Gaza war spread across the country. Video footage showed protesters on Columbia's Manhattan campus locking arms in front of Hamilton Hall early on Tuesday and carrying furniture and metal barricades to the building. Dozens of protesters barricaded the entrances and unfurled a Palestinian flag out of a window. Hamilton Hall, which protesters said they have now dubbed Hind Hall or Hind Hall, is one of several buildings that was previously occupied during a 1968 civil rights and anti-Vietnam protest on the campus. An autonomous group reclaimed Hind Hall, previously known as Hamilton Hall, in honor of Hind Rajab, a martyr murdered at the hands of the genocidal Israeli state at the age of 6 years old. Columbia University's apartheid divest, a coalition representing pro-Palestinian student organizations, posted on X. So here's the sign there, Hind Hall. That's where they have occupied and renamed that from Hamilton Hall. Now we're going to take a look at some of this video. Here they are outside the building. Shut it down. Now this is last night, so this is after the 2 p.m. deadline to disperse or be suspended. So these are kids who, assuming their identities will be revealed, which is why a lot of them are masked, they will face a suspension if they're identified on the campus. That's outside the building. Here's inside the building. Okay, back to the article here. Student radio station WKCR-FM broadcast a play-by-play of the hall's takeover, which occurred hours after the protesters defied the Monday 2 p.m. deadline to leave the encampment of about 120 tents or face suspension. Columbia says it has now begun enacting that threat. Protesters said on X that students plan to remain at the hall until the university concedes to their demands, complete divestment from finances in Israel, transparency about financial ties to the country, and amnesty from any disciplinary measures for all students participating in the protests. We demand our voices be heard against the mass slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza, their post said, adding that they hold Columbia University as complicit in this violence, and this is why we protest. Universities across the U.S. are grappling with growing protests with an eye on end-of-year commencement ceremonies. Some are continuing negotiations, while others have turned to ultimatums and force, which has resulted in clashes with police. So there's the report from Al Jazeera. We saw some video. The kids are not backing down. Some of them probably dispersed because they were afraid of getting suspended and the semester is over anyway. But enough of them are saying, no, we're not leaving. We're not leaving. And it's just an inspiring thing to see. And once again, because we're going to play some video in the next semi-segment here, categorizing these as violent protests. It's important to say this every single time in every single segment because we clip these separately, and it's very important that this gets out there. The NYPD has not cited a single act of violence committed by any of these kids. Not one. On either campus, Columbia or NYU, the new school has an encampment too as of last week. I don't know if they broke that one up yet. That didn't get as much press as these other ones. That's a much smaller school. But they have one going as well. So there are at least 3 encampments that we know of happening in New York City. The New York cops have not cited a single act of violence. And so now these students are seeing their suspension threat and raising them an occupation. And, I really hope that they stick this out. And, it's imperative that they keep things nonviolent, because once you cross that threshold, once you cross that line, you're going to lose everybody. So, I'm not saying this to chide you, because so far they have behaved fantastically well, I think. But they have to keep that up, and they have to keep their resolve and keep their demands where they are, because you have seen schools start to make certain concessions around the edges. Russell, you were talking one before we went on the air. I forget what you were mentioning. But you have seen them start to budge.
There's school, I can't remember which one. It's in the Pacific Northwest that has suspended taking donations from Boeing.
Boeing, that's right, yeah.
Which it's a start. It's a start. The students are rejecting it as a gesture of placation, because
they should reject
they have
everything.
Other ties and
no, but the fact that they're giving them something means that they are weakening, right? And so, because if you did this in 2002, 2003, post 9/11, run up to the Iraq War, if you had an anti-war protest and you made any kind of demand, you wouldn't get shit from any of these institutions. They wouldn't budge an inch. So the fact that they're budging an inch already is a good sign.
I was reading an interview with Paul Rudd, who was one of the main student leaders of the 1968.
My father knew Paul Rudd. Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah. Well, he hung out at the campuses. He hung out at those 1968 campuses.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He was one of the leaders of the 1968 Columbia protests before he went on to be a leading member of the Weather Underground. And he was saying there are a lot more women leaders than back in his day, and he feels that that's toning down the macho, because he's saying their generation of protesters were much more prone to make violent threats. He's talking about it was a very common chant, "Hey, motherfucker," up against the wall. Right. He's saying, I'm not seeing things like that. They're not calling the cops pigs, which was so common in that era. And yeah, they're and this is why the NYPD can't find a single incident.
Mark Rudd, that's it. I knew something was wrong. Mark Rudd.
Mark Rudd.
Thank you. Right. Paul Rudd is the actor.
Thank you.
yes. I knew something was fishy about that.
That's always happening.
Yeah.
That's always happening. They're always showing up at Paul Rudd's house to question him.
Yeah, right.
Poor guy.
Paul Rudd, yeah.
So yeah, come on. I mean, this generation, American society is just not as violent anymore. I remember years ago, a friend of mine got in a bar fight and got arrested. He said, "Can't anybody just get the shit beat out of them and go home anymore?"
Right.
But it's true, man. It's true. You get into a fist fight, you assume you're going to jail. It didn't used to be that way back in the day. That would have been very rare. Anyone would have called the cops over a fist fight. Now they'd almost universally do it. People just don't throw hands like they used to.
Well, this thing about, on the question of tactics, right? And, because Norm Finkelstein, caused a little bit of controversy.
Oh, Norm?
What else is
Norm
new?
did?
Right, yeah.
Really?
Because he went there and he says, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" is not a good slogan to use. He says you should tweak that to say that Palestinians should be free, meaning you're not talking about a political takeover of land. You're just talking about equal rights. He's parsing it there, right? He's parsing it as academics tend to.
If you remember, we asked him about the right of return, and he didn't want to answer that.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I think Norm feels, and the first time we interviewed Norm, I had a little bit of a back and forth with him, not about this issue, but about prison abolition, defund the police, right? He's very critical. He's very critical of slogans that he feels give ammunition to the other side of the argument, or that are not realizable, in short time. He said, radicals have a responsibility to advocate for things they can actually do, because the action is the main thing. And I get that. I respect that. On the other hand, he came up at a time where change was possible. Right? I mean, during the civil rights movement, change was possible. We saw change. We live 50 years outside of that, or 60 years outside of that now, where the system has become so corrupted by money and all kinds of international interests that what's possible is very, very limiting. So if you're going to limit your rhetoric to what is achievable in the short term, you're going to end up sounding like a fucking mainstream Democrat, because you could say Medicare for all is not doable in the short term. So should we not advocate for that? Should we advocate for a public option? Because that's what Joe Biden does, right?
Right.
So I think the times are a little different to the point where you can't be that constrained. And I got into it with him a bit the first time we interviewed him. This was long before, October 7th. But as with regards to like that slogan, I think we have to be very firm in the stance that we are the normies. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is a normie, benign, unthreatening phrase. If that triggers you, it's because you're a fucking racist. You're the one who's not normal. We have to own that and really be very firm on that. And so I don't agree with that. Now, the reason I bring that up, because that may seem like a bit of a non sequitur, is because I think our rhetoric should be firm. It should be bold. We should insist that, of course, free Palestine on Palestinian land, whether you call that Palestine or Israel, that's a question downstream of that. I brought that up on the Jimmy Dore show with Max last night. But there's no question that on that land, there should be equal rights for everybody. Everyone who is against that is the non-normal person. Normal people believe in equal rights for everyone. So if you have a problem with that, that's your problem. But the reason I bring this up, not to be long-winded, is that when it comes to rhetoric, we should be bold and firm. When it comes to nonviolence, you must stay committed to nonviolence, because if you do not stay committed to that, then our narrative falls apart. Our narrative falls apart. These Zionists are the ones out there threatening people. These Zionists say things that we can't even repeat on this channel because we get in trouble for quoting them. That's how vile they are. So let them occupy that space. Rhetorically, we'll be uncompromising, and occupying a building is not hurting anybody, right? Civil disobedience is part and parcel of any protest movement. That's all good. It has to stay nonviolent so that you don't cede that upper hand, because we have to own the fact that we are actually the normies here. The radicals are the people making excuses for the constant murder of children. Those are the radicals. We're not radicals. We're normal people who believe everybody should be able to live equally and in peace. There's nothing threatening about that. There's nothing particularly outside the bounds about that. Not whatsoever. And so it's important to own that.
Yeah, you have tended we've tended to disagree about sloganeering. We never agreed about defund the police. I was always on the other side of that. In this case, I agree with you though, because the underlying demand is the only reasonable demand here.
Right.
It is, whereas I felt defund the police was overly confusing in terms of what it meant. Because if you talk to people about what it actually meant, it meant what I thought you should be advocating, to reroute the funds into other areas, to reroute it into mental health services. Sure. And I feel like when you said defund the police, it was just too easy to interpret it as, this is Thunderdome. We're just going to not have police, right? It was too easy. This, from the river to the sea, insofar as people are confused by it, it's actually worth explaining it, because that is the only worthy aim of any movement regarding this region. You want to forcefully take on the idea that a two-state solution is a solution, because as we have seen in the past, even if what you want or what you think is feasible is to leave this apartheid state, this ethno-state intact with the Palestinians living on their own land, Israel will never allow it. Israel only uses those discussions to play for time so that they can gradually impose more settlements, de facto take over more land. That is that Israel is playing a from the river to the sea game. It's just a game where there are no more Palestinians within that territory from the river to the sea. So you want to forcefully shut down discussion of a two-state solution. You don't want people getting sidetracked into that. So from the river to the sea opens up that conversation. It is valid, and you're right. You can't let them define that as anti-Semitic, which is what they're doing with all of this. And again, it's absurd on the face of it. Yes, the wokest, most identity-obsessed generation in history, all of a sudden, hundreds of university campuses around the country are exploding with Kristallnacht style anti-Semitism.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to go to a B part of this segment. So, folks, we know that currently the halls of Columbia University, specifically Hamilton Hall, has been occupied by student protesters after Columbia suspended them for failing to disperse after the 2 p.m. deadline yesterday. At this recording, that would be obviously Monday, April 29th. This morning, see, this is why to do a noon show is tough, because you got to catch a lot of the morning stuff. This morning, Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL joined Morning Joe to liken this occupation to another occupation that's still fresh in the minds of the libs who watch Morning Joe. Let's see if you can guess what he compares this to.
Because the administration went remote, because the administration was so afraid of these people. I see these videos. I see these images of mass protesters breaking into buildings, barricading them with furniture, and look, I'm reminded of January the 6th.
Oh, my God.
January the 6th.
That's what this looks like to me.
And now the cycle is complete.
Yeah, right.
Things, barricading them with furniture, and look, I'm reminded of January the 6th. That's what this looks like to me. I mean, we talk at ADL about right-wing extremists, about masked Proud Boys showing up at school board meetings, about Oath Keepers wearing masks. I look at this, and this is what I see. And let's be clear about one thing. The students who are doing this, the groups behind it, SJP, Palestinian Youth Movement, their response to President Shafiq's offer last night was, Columbia will burn. I mean, these students, we shouldn't treat them like children when they're hardened activists.
Well, they're adults, and go ahead.
No, go,
So...
All right, Mika joins the party here. So for some reason, this is two different tweets. It was compiled this morning. So, but here's the rest of this.
And that's where that's the place we've all been sitting in watching this, going, what the hell is going on? What are these universities doing? Why aren't they doing something? And I'll echo the horror that this does look like January 6th. What a terrible example for our students. At the same time, these are young adults, and the question is, why do you choose to learn about the complexities of other situations around the world? But this one, you want to set up an encampment. This one, you want to scare people. This one, you want to come to the edge of violence or even go to violence.
Not because this one is a genocide, you fucking dingbat. What do you mean? What is unique about this one?
Well, not
what
only
kind of
that.
question is that?
Well, not only that, and somebody else made this formulation. Joe, right? It was Joe. Well, the common denominator here. It's not hard for me to see. He was trying to argue it's Jews.
Oh, yeah, that was
the common denominator in the list that he ran down of atrocities in other nations is we're not funding them. Not only are we not funding them, we have antagonistic relationships with all the countries. They're not allies of ours. Not only allies, we're funding it. We're literally sending the money and weapons to do it.
And in this case,
That's
we doesn't mean.
Sorry,
I didn't mean to cut you off. In this case, we doesn't just mean like the country. In their case, we means the school, their tuition money, right? Is going towards a partnership with this genocidal state. So yeah. That's why now
they're not sending money to Syria.
Right.
Exactly. They're not sending money to the Sudan.
Right. Exactly. All right. This gets even better though.
This one, you risk your future and your education for.
Let's play this. Let's start this a few seconds back.
Come to the edge of violence or even go to violence.
Sorry, I don't mean to do this to you folks, but the lies come at you faster than you can keep up. The protests are not violent. The NYPD, I have to say this over and over again. I hate to have to repeat it, but if they're going to repeat lies, we have to repeat the truth. The NYPD has not cited a single violent incident that any protester has taken place in. Not one. In New York City, across 3 campuses, New School, NYU, King's College. We should call it King's College. We shouldn't call it Columbia anymore. We should call it what it is. We should call it. It should be back to King's College. We should dead name Columbia University now. We really should. Yeah.
So quick tour guide trivia for anyone who doesn't get that.
Yeah.
So Columbia originally was attached to Church, which was the base for the Church of England in the colonies. So Columbia was actually originally called the King's College, which it literally was. It was literally under the monarchy. After the Revolution, it was very dangerous to be associated with the monarchy. So they took this very patriotic name. Christopher Columbus had been a hero in North America even before the Revolution, was like a folk hero. So it became Columbia. And that's why, if you see what they occupied, it's Hamilton Hall. A lot of the residence halls have the names of founding fathers.
Right. Exactly. All right, here we go.
Violence.
Not the
this
edge.
one,
They're
you
breaking
risk
into buildings.
your future and your education for. See, I think these college students obviously are missing the part where they need to see what's going on across the country with these protests, that it's now in the realm of violence. It's in the realm of hatred, whether some are peaceful or not. They need to watch the news and look at all the different arguments and be adults, or start learning to be adults and set up discussions and debates across college campuses or their colleges or universities.
Here it comes. Open your ears here.
Campuses or their colleges or universities are going to have no choice but to expel them and ruin their future, the impact they want to have on the community, society, and the world at some point. But let's then go to the hard part of this. What is the solution?
Do it. Expel them, please. I beg you. I want to see every college student from every university protest expelled from their college. I dare you to do it. I beg you to do it. Please expel them. Please expel them. And then let's see who enrolls in Ibram X. Kendi's Anti-Racism 101 lecture series in the fall. Let's see what's left of your bullshit universities if you expel all of these kids. Let's watch your credibility implode the way it should have decades ago after you expel students for protesting a genocide. I beg you, show every single one of them the door, and I beg that none of them ever come back. I beg no one ever goes back to your piece of shit schools whose assets should be seized and they should be converted into affordable housing. That's what should happen to all of these colleges, and I dare you to light that fire by expelling all of these kids at every one of these campuses. I would love nothing more than to see that. Nothing more than to see that, because the credibility of these institutions is plummeting, and nothing would drive the nail deeper into that coffin than if you expelled these kids. And I hope you do it. And I hope the kids who are being suspended, I hope they never fucking come back. I hope they never come back. They shouldn't. This should be the beginning of the end for all these Ivy League schools, for all these private universities that ran their little scam where they ruined the economic prospects of 2 generations by charging these obscene tuition and room and board rates and creating this giant debt bubble for teaching shit they don't mean. They don't mean it. They teach you civil disobedience. They teach you the history of nonviolent protest. They teach you anti-racism. They teach you anti-colonialism. The minute you put those words into actions, what do? They call the police on you to bash your heads in, and they throw you out of the fucking school. So tell them to go fuck themselves. And if they want to expel these kids, go for it. I'm all for it. I am all for it. 100%. I hope they all do it.
All right. So China Shill, we sent you our P.O. box. You can send check or money order for that monologue about burning down the universities. Okay. So we're on your side, man. We're on your side.
We're on your side. We're on your side.
You are our sponsor. You are our sponsor. Yeah, well, if you look at the formulation that Mika lays out there, it is the post-Powell memo way of dealing with student discontent and rerouting it. Briefly, for anyone who doesn't know, a former Supreme Court justice wrote a memo in the 70s that was basically a blueprint to the world we live in today, explaining how business should invest a lot more money in taking over media, in influencing the public conversation. And what they did on the university level was start symposiums and apprenticeships and internships at places like McKinsey and tell these idealistic youth, well, look, you got to come work at McKinsey so you can scale social justice, and we're going to teach you about microloans in Africa, and you know, just basically take all that idealistic energy, which is often very sincere, and channel it into ways that would be no threat to the system. And part of this new gospel that they were preaching to these students was, yeah, no, we're not colonialists and we're not racists anymore. That was bad stuff in the past, and you are the virtuous ones who are going to stamp out the very last of this. And they had them chasing their tails with this nonsense fucking white fragility bullshit. And as we mentioned before, where are these people? Where are they, man? Where's Robin DiAngelo? Where's Robin DiAngelo?
Right. Yeah.
She cares so much about her fucking whiteness and white privilege. I haven't heard her say a fucking word about this. Where's Ibram X. Kendi? Where is he? Even lesser lights. Where are all these people who have infiltrated corporations with their fucking DEI nonsense, which is essentially just a way of running cover for the corporate owners that hire them? Where are they? Why don't you see some of these heads of DEI departments marching in solidarity, speaking up to the student? Head of DEI department at Paramount today made a statement. Not a fucking word when you have the real shit happening in real time, not 150 years ago, not 100 years ago, happening right now. Your country, the one you live in, the one you're a citizen of, is responsible for it. Not a fucking word from these people. And that's what's burning down the credibility of everything that Mika represents. And when you look at what she's describing the world that the Powell memo created that existed until October 7th. She wants them to go to ineffective symposiums where they're going to have very polite debates, where they're going to be interviewed on shows like Morning Joe, and they're going to pretend that we have an effective democracy where these conversations have meaningful impact on actual policy. And and then you can go and shame the public for January 6th. Oh, see, they're overthrowing our democracy. What do you mean we don't have a democracy? We have symposiums. We have student organizations that are free to speak their mind, as long as you don't actually accomplish anything, as long as you don't actually disrupt anything.
Yeah, and you can see what frauds and hacks these professors are. You can see how little they mean what they say. The proof that they don't mean what they say is not only that they're keeping their mouths shut, but that their students actually get it. Like their students actually absorbed what they told them and are putting it in practice, yet the people who told it to them are nowhere to be seen. Some of them, not all. In fairness, a lot of the faculty at King's College lined up and did a hand-by-hand blockade.
They did.
So some of them are cool.
Good on them.
Some of them are cool. But so many of them, like the ones we just mentioned, where is Ibram X. Kendi? Where is Mr. Anti-Racism through all this?
Where is he? Where is he? Not a fucking word. Not a word.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. All right, we got one more segment on the day because Russell's got to catch a flight, but we'll take some super chats and Rumble rants first. Russell says, Veronica McShane, I ran away from home. TTI is for-profit and run by Wall Street. The program I was at was owned by Bain Capital through Aspen Education Group.
Wow. Thank you, Veronica. Wow. You know, the only thing I got arrested for that was like a serious charge, breaking and entering, I was 16. So, yeah, when I hear stories like this, I say there, but for the grace of God. You know, if I had been in a different state, under a different regime, if I had been a different color, frankly, if I hadn't got arrested with a rich white kid whose family hired a good lawyer, and because his charges were actually worse than mine because he had a knife on him, anything they did for him, they had to do for me. So in essence, his lawyer was working for me too, because otherwise it would be unequal protection under the law. If we got arrested in the same place doing the same thing and he got cleared and I got a stiffer charge. So yeah, man, that's part of why I'm passionate about this issue, man. I could have been one of these people.
Yeah. Yep. Derek P., great show yesterday with Ryan and Max. DD bringing the heat all week. Thank you, Derek P. That was a fun show yesterday. 2 good guests yesterday. That was a packed house. Vicky Blair, thanks for the $20. It's very kind of you. The first time I heard of Scott Galloway is when Smirkanish had him on to talk about the book he wrote, all about how the country is going to hell because young people don't have sex anymore.
Hey, he's being very mercenary with that fact. But yes, it is true they're not having sex. I see it as a more David Cronenberg thing where the technology is mutating them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's giving you certain dopamine hits too.
Right.
Like that's the actual dopamine hit, not protesting genocide and getting beat up by police. That's not a dopamine hit. He might need to take a biochemistry class and figure out what dopamine is, because that's not what goes through your body when the cops are dragging you off the campus lawn by your arms. Yeah.
That's why I keep saying some people say you should have to do military service to graduate high school, or you should have to work a job to graduate high school. I have long been of the opinion you should have to spend a weekend in jail to graduate high school.
Yeah.
We would have a completely different society if we had that.
That's an idea. Would it have been out of bounds to say in 1940 Germany, Nazis should die? Overdue. Amash, well, that's what Sam Harris says now. Good day, fellas. Just wondering, when are you touring Australia? Cheers from
We keep
Sydney.
getting that question lately.
Yeah, we keep getting that question asked.
Yeah. Well, my soon-to-be ex-wife, we're still technically married, she lives in Sydney, so we'd have a place to stay.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we just got to cover the airfare. Back from the road, thanks to the 1999, the idea of a free Palestine wasn't viable in the short term in 1968. But demanding nothing short of river to the sea is how we got to the point where it is a viable reality now. Well, that and protracted armed struggle. Thank you, back from the road. Iranian Kiddo. Thanks, Iranian Kiddo, for the $9.99.
Like the Jack Nicholson.
The Jack Nicholson there. Yeah, indeed. Not sure if you saw, but Tesla just announced earlier today of more layoffs, including the entire supercharger team. Oh, wow. It's early out on the West Coast. Russell wouldn't have caught that one yet. This is an early show for him.
Yeah, just quickly, yeah. Tesla, Tesla has irons in a lot of fires. I was reading an interesting article about how they're way ahead on battery technology for not for cars, for homes and for entire neighborhoods, and they could pivot their business in that direction. So that's possible, man. I mean, I'm not predicting the bankruptcy of Tesla. I'm predicting that they're never getting back their market share in the car business.
Baser maternal rage. Watch out, quiet horse rants. I actually warned Russell of that. I gave him that exact warning before we went on.
He did.
I'm going to have a quiet horse moment on when we do the Mika thing, so just be ready. Yeah, exactly.
He kicked out the fence today.
Exactly. Nocturnal Human, suggestion for the show, some kind of graphic on the screen to show which segment you're on. Might look more professional and help you get done on time so you don't finish late when the baby arrives. Well, thank you for the suggestion. We'll take that under advisement. We could put a little Chiron up. But, one of the reasons why we're doing 4 shows a week is actually so that we can make the shows a little bit more merciful in terms of their runtime. We can do about 2 hours now as opposed to before when we were doing 3 a week, they were 3.5, 4 hours long. And that, with a baby in our schedules, is not really doable. So we instead just added a 4th show.
I mean, honestly, with the world on fire, it's so difficult to do so many stories that are out there that you just never get to, man.
Yeah, even at 4, you leave stuff out.
Even at 4, yeah.
Yep, for sure. Keaton and Russell says Olympus Scout. Thank you, Olympus Scouts. Thoughts on Jill Stein joining students' protests in Missouri? Yeah, well, she got arrested there, and now she's charged with assaulting an officer, apparently, in St. Louis. That's good for her. Whoever shows up, shows up. Go ahead.
Yeah,
do it. Good on you.
Good for her. I think I can speak for both of us in saying we have nothing against Jill Stein. I'll speak for myself in saying I am increasingly convinced that the Green Party is an op, not in the sense that they themselves see themselves that way, but in that the intelligence services feed ineffectual left organizations as a way of siphoning off that portion of the population into quixotic battles that they'll never win.
Right, so they'll never get organized. Yeah, I think that's a fair theory. I mean, the results certainly support that theory, whether it's true or not.
I just don't believe, because I meet people like Jose, like Kynan. I cannot, very smart young people. And I just can't believe they're the only ones. So I have to ask, in all these decades, why have no effective outside the duopoly left organizations gotten their shit together? And yeah, I'm of the conclusion they get infiltrated by ops and undermined before they ever get anywhere. And they empower and feed groups that are absurd.
Yep, certainly possible. Do them a favor, says Dodger 12. Expel them, then they can experience some real life things instead of being lied to every day. Yes, thank you, Dodger 12.
Learn to weld.
Yeah, learn to weld. Exactly. These schools are for NGO and economic hitman training. Yes, well put, Base of Maternal Rage.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll finish up our Super Chats and Rumble Rants after our final segment of the day, because Russell has a plane to catch. But this last segment of the day, folks, is called Two Scoops. We're going to call this Two Scoops because Axios yesterday published...
Hang on. Before you move on, I will just throw this up. Yep, from Malcolm. We are not outnumbered. We are out-organized. Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Right. Axios yesterday published two scoops about 4 hours apart. Scoop number one. Netanyahu tells Biden he's worried about possible International Criminal Court arrest warrants. So they had a talk earlier this week. Israeli Prime Minister, I did this because the way Axios formats their articles, it's weird with the bullet points and the bold and this. It's a pain in the ass to make a proper slideshow, so I just copy and pasted the graphic. That's why it looks a little different. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asked President Biden Sunday to help prevent the International Criminal Court from issuing arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials in connection with the war in Gaza, two Israeli officials told Axios. Why it matters. Israeli officials have grown increasingly concerned over the last 2 weeks that the ICC is preparing to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu. Defense Minister Yoav Human Animals Gallant, that's what the quote he's most famous for recently, and IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi. Behind the scenes, the official said Netanyahu expressed his concern to Biden in a phone call on Sunday, where the two leaders also discussed hostage negotiations, Israel's defense against Iran's missile attack, and the need to increase humanitarian aid to Gaza, according to a White House readout. The ICC, which is based in The Hague, Netherlands, has been investigating possible war crimes by both Israeli forces and Palestinian militants dating back to the 2014 Israel-Hamas war. U.S. officials say they do not have a clear indication when the ICC is going to issue arrest warrants, but said the prosecutor's office is under pressure from NGOs in several ICC member states to do so. What they're saying: under my leadership, Israel will never accept any attempt by the ICC to undermine its inherent right of self-defense, Netanyahu said in a statement on X Friday. While the ICC will not affect Israel's actions, it would set a dangerous precedent that threatens soldiers and officials of all democracies fighting savage terrorism and wanton aggression, he said. What he means by that is, Max Blumenthal mentioned this on the Jimmy Dore show yesterday when we were on, is basically what an arrest warrant would do is the same thing it does to Vladimir Putin when a warrant came out for his arrest. It restricts his movements. He can't go to certain places. Right. A spokesperson for the White House National Security Council declined to comment on the contents of Netanyahu's call with Biden, but told Axios, as we publicly said many times, the ICC has no jurisdiction in this situation, and we do not support its investigation. So they had a phone call. Netanyahu asked for the United States to shield Israel from any ICC arrest warrant. And Israel asks, we deliver. Scoop number two. 4 hours after scoop number one, Congress threatens ICC over Israeli arrest warrants. And so tell me again how these students are in the wrong. Tell me again how these students are the violent ones. We're the ones, as you'll see in this second scoop, We are willing to totally throw out any pretense that we give a damn about international law in order to shield Israel. That's what this scoop gets into. The ICC is being warned by members of Congress in both parties that arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials will be met with U.S. retaliation, not just condemnation, but retaliation. And legislation to that effect is already in the works, Axios has learned. See how quickly they move? See how well government functions when it's to do something horrible?
Yeah.
Right? When it comes to passing an infrastructure bill, it's months and negotiations and stalemates and taking things out that would help too many people because it costs too much money. When it comes time to shielding a terror state from the International Criminal Court, they get right on it. No time to waste.
Well, yeah, no. Anytime it's something for the American people, they trot out, oh, democracy is messy. This is how the sausage is made. The system was designed by the founders to be inefficient. They'll give you all that fucking bullshit, and then in the end, you don't even get a crust of bread.
Right. But when Israel makes a phone call and says, hey, we're about to be tried at The Hague, we need help, boom, instant mobilization.
Right. When Ukraine needs money, Ukraine needs money. Look, you had a couple of these people held it up for a little while, but in the end, they get their way, man. I don't know how they do it. They send you pictures of your children at school or something, but Marjorie didn't file that motion to vacate.
Yeah, where's that motion to vacate?
Where's that motion to vacate?
Yeah, where is it? It's been a while. I thought that was coming.
They showed her a picture of her dog and Kristi Noem side by side.
Driving the news. House Speaker Mike Johnson issued a statement on Monday calling the reported warrants disgraceful and lawless, meaning the ICC warrants. If unchallenged by the Biden administration, the ICC could create and assume unprecedented power to issue arrest warrants against American political leaders, American diplomats, and American military personnel, Johnson said. Johnson called for the Biden administration to immediately and unequivocally demand that the ICC stand down and use every available tool to prevent such an abomination. The speaker joined several Republican lawmakers who have harshly criticized the ICC in recent days. What we're hearing. One Republican House member told Axios there is already legislation being drafted to respond to any warrants. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Michael McCall, Republican from Texas, told Axios he expects a House version of Senator Tom Cotton's bill to sanction ICC officials involved in investigating the U.S. and its allies, but added, we hope it doesn't come to that, hence the word threat. Stand down, or we're going to start issuing sanctions against you. Representative Brad Sherman, Democrat from California, said the U.S. should think of whether we stay a signatory to the Rome Statute, the treaty that established the ICC. Once again, we're just willing to burn down any pretense that we value international law. We have to think about talking to some of the countries that have ratified the treaty as to whether they want to support the organization, he added. Zoom in. It's not just Republicans lashing out and warning the ICC that warrants could be met with a legislative response. Staunchly pro-Israel Representative Richie Torres, soon to be former congressman, we hope, go to votevega.nyc, and Senator John Fetterman have both criticized... Yeah, that's his quote, his on-the-record statement. John Fetterman have both criticized the reported warrants, with Torres calling for strong consequences from both Congress and the president. I know Congress will ensure consequences for such an absurd decision, Sherman said in a post on X. An ICC spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comments. You know who threatens judges and courts? The mafia. You know who else got in a lot of trouble with a lot of these Democrats for trashing judges with inflammatory rhetoric that some perceived as threats? Donald Trump. Remember that guy, Donald Trump, who's on trial for trying to work the courts and work the judges and trashing the judges at a trial? They say this is, he's trashing a judge. He's trashing the legal system. Well, here you are, Rick. Yeah, I'm a dissident. Richie Torres, John Fetterman, those are the Democrats. Obviously, plenty of Republicans with their hands dirty as well here. Look at how we are willing to just debase ourselves. Like, this is just totally mask off. You're threatening to sanction the ICC investigators for looking at our ally and perhaps by extension us, even though we do not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC because we incidentally do a lot of war crimes, right? That's why we don't. But they threaten an arrest warrant against Netanyahu, and instantly you have legislation being drafted to enforce retribution, to bring down retribution on them.
Yeah.
This is a country on the right side of, like, does anybody really think we're on the right side of this at this point? Like, how do you even do a show like Morning Joe now? How do you go on CNN? How do you maintain any premise that we are in the right here? I mean, that's blatant, is it not?
On the bright side, more and more people are waking up to the fact that this is all infotainment and not news, as their ratings and demographics of their viewers reflect. And as that poll that just came out shows, yeah, if you do watch cable news, you don't think Israel is committing war crimes. I mean, that really shows you how distorted a perception of what's happening they're going to give you. But if you want to see the true face of power, you have to challenge it. It's all well and good to say we support international law, we support these institutions of justice, not like Vladimir Putin, not like China, not like Xi. We support the rules-based international order. It's all well and good to say that until the rules-based international order challenges your interests, challenges what you're really doing. And that's what these students are discovering. That's what some people who are paying attention hopefully are waking up to from things like this. This is what the rest of the world has long known. It's been a very long time that polling of people around the world, when you ask them which nation is the greatest threat to world peace, will say the United States. Yep. The only ones left to find this out are Americans. And some of them are hopeless. Some of them are just going to swallow the Kool-Aid. And if they didn't have Donald Trump to redirect to, they'd have to invent him, right? You know, you just keep these people, oh, God, but he's better than Trump. I don't agree with Biden about everything. Trump, right? Bernie's helping out to get the left-adjacent people to think they have representation by coming out against Netanyahu, as if that and a nickel will get you on the fucking subway. So yeah, no, this is I keep comparing it, and Max pointed out some interesting differences yesterday, but it is very much like the Vietnam era in a lot of ways. As I say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. There's definitely a rhyme here where you have the public being woken up to the true face of state power and experiencing a lot of cognitive dissonance, because what the reality is, once you poke it a little bit, is so far removed from what they were told it was.
Indeed. Yes. Well said. Stone Socialist, what are the pro-Israeli people protesting anyway? The right to genocide. Yeah, basically.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Great job. You two are mensches. Thank you, Baku77. Appreciate that. It's a generous donation. Thank you. China Shill, thanks for the $1. Remember, the U.S. has a law that says we will invade The Hague if any American officials or military personnel are being held for trial.
$1 was not the agreement.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Martin R.
Just like a commie.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the $19.99, Martin R. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Barbara Fortune, for the $1.99. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Kuznetsky Bassane, inspiring as always. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. All righty, folks. Well, that is our show today. Russell has a plane to catch, so he will be hitting the skies in the comfort of a JetBlue Airbus in just a few hours, and we will be back in exactly 24 hours on Rumble only tomorrow. So tomorrow's a Rumble exclusive show, so make sure you are subscribed to us over there.
All the time.
Yeah. Go to rumble.com/do dissidents. Make sure you follow us over there. If you're over there now, 1,225 of you, make sure you hit that follow button so that you are here with us tomorrow. Tomorrow is Rumble Day. We're looking forward to it. We got a great one tomorrow, and we are on Thursday night. We're going to do Thursday at 8 p.m. This week because I have a commitment in the morning. So no morning due this week. We're going to do an 8 p.m. primetime show this Thursday, but we will still have a program for you guys on Thursday. So thank you all very much for being here. It's been a pleasure as always. Safe travels to Russ back to New York, and you'll probably be at the campus, I imagine, sometime this week.
I'm definitely going to go over there this week.
Maybe Thursday, and we can do some footage.
I have the Dissident Dialogues Friday and Saturday, so I'll try to get over there Thursday probably.
All right, cool. Excellent. Well, that's something to look forward to. Thank you all very much for being here today. We appreciate you all. Please hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button or that follow button on the way out. Join our Substack so you're a member of our newsletter. It's free, dodissidents.substack.com. That keeps you in touch with us to let you know when and where we will be live next. We're live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Rumble only. YouTube is dark tomorrow, so we will be on Rumble tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you very much for today. We will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.